All right. UFO Twitter is trending today on Twitter. I'm pretty shocked by this because this is like the third time in a month that hashtag UFO Twitter has been trending all over North America.
Yeah, and I gotta say that I think that I don't know. I mean, I think in a way you almost have to like separate this from the fact that it's UFO Twitter. One, because UFO Twitter getting really popular, a little debatable whether that's a good thing or not. And it's not always apples to apples with everything else. But if you consider how long ago it got started, considering what we had before it got started, considering the very organic way it has grown and what it's turned into, and the fact that now we try to, we're actually starting to see progress from it. What is that, like, say 5 years, something like that. That's actually pretty good. And the thing is that I think we average around 500 posts a day last I checked, and this trend was at 1,500. So that's 3x. If you're a 3x your average, it's not bad at all, right? I mean, that's a pretty good trend. Now, I think it's a little artificial this time because I think it unfortunately was related to another news item we're going to cover, but it doesn't change the fact that it's good to see, and the thing is that the more it trends, the more other people who haven't seen it before see it, comment on it, inquire, see what it is, and hopefully learn something.
John, for people who may not know, how does trending work on Twitter? So a hashtag like UFO Twitter could actually become very popular and trending for many people who may not even understand the subject.
Well, actually, what's little known secret is, just like you, Dave, they use a magic 8-ball. That's how they actually figure it out. No, they have all these algorithms, and basically the idea is that as you're posting on Twitter, you can add hashtags to it. They constantly calculate how many times the hashtags are showing up, and basically they categorize topics as trending based on how many people are actually commenting on them, and as well as how many views each post gets that commented on it, how many likes. There's a whole algorithm that goes into it. My guess is that even in court, you would have trouble getting them to actually spell out exactly how they do it, but that's roughly how they do it.
UFO Twitter is usually a real cesspool for information and a lot of online barking and arguing. Yet,
depending on your approach.
Okay. What do you mean?
Dave, for me, it's a really nice, pleasant place. So like, I used to see what you guys talk about, but I don't see that anymore, right? So for me, it's like, it's not that way anymore. And so that's why I have to comment that I think it has something to do with your approach to it.
It can't tell what my approach is. I just type it on in, hashtag UFO Twitter.
Oh yeah, no, what I'm saying is what you post and how people react to it. That certainly they do pay attention to your tone and so forth.
No, I don't stir anything up on Twitter. Actually, I did. I did last night. I did. And I'll tell you why. Because there are very few times that I think somebody should give themselves a pat on the back. Okay? And Daniel Otis and I broke a couple of big stories the other night about the Canadian government and UFOs.
Yep.
And there was a number of tweets on UFO Twitter about how Liberation Times broke the story.
Huh.
And yet, Liberation Times used Daniel Otis's video that he had posted on his YouTube channel of Member of Parliament Larry Maguire. And we followed it up with what we broke here on Spaced Out Radio about Hal Puthoff and members of the SCU meeting with government officials. So and this is nothing against the Liberation Times. I really like the work they're doing. I really do. Mm-hmm. But there was a couple of tweets out there that said, congratulations to Liberation Times breaking this story. So I went on there and I said, sorry, in my best Canadian way, They did not break the story at DS Otis, which is Daniel Otis's Twitter handle, and at Spaced Out Radio broke this story. Because you know what, when you work hard for something like that, it is very, very tough. Daniel Otis did a great job at leading the way. We followed it up with a secondary breaking story. And so, you know what? I'm going to brag about that.
Yeah. No, but that, to me, that's different than egging someone on, you know. And to me, like, if I had made your comment, the only thing I would have done differently is I would have added something to the end of it that says, "But we do appreciate the fact that the Liberation Times has helped spread the message."
I did say that.
Oh, good. And so
I did
that,
say, you know what? But
perfect, right?
we had, you know, it's great that the Liberation Times covered this.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally perfect. That's exactly that's the awesome human way to handle it. So that's good stuff. I mean, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
consider that poking the bear.
No.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you work hard for something and people try to give other people credit for it, that sucks.
Oh no, and look, I mean, flat out, like, if you care about something, you defend it, right? I mean, it's like,
It's
you know,
theft.
if the you know, yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, like, it's yeah, no, totally. I mean, you gotta stand up. So it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And that's the thing, is that realistically, you know, it'd be nice if essentially, you know, UFO Twitter becomes this kind of, you know, or continues to be this kind of, inner exchange point of different groups that come from different points of view, and have different ways of going about it. And you know, and you know, like I said, I mean, I think that, you know, certainly it you have to look at it for what it is, and that is that it's a really good confirmation engine. So if you're unsure of what you believe and you want other people to reaffirm you without data, it's a great tool for that. So tread wary. But it also is a really good tool for disseminating information, and it's also a great tool for having conversation. I got into a conversation the other day about, um, uh, tactics during convoys
Mm-hmm.
that might be employed during guerrilla situations, like what we might be seeing in certain countries. And whoa, I could not believe the expertise of two of the individuals that were involved. Like, they were dropping some incredible knowledge on, like, different things you could do. It was really cool. And this was all going on live on Twitter. It's like pretty awesome.
No, Twitter is its own world. That is for sure. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even getting into Reddit yet because I still haven't figured out what Reddit is all about. And Reddit, I'm going to be honest with you, kind of scares me. It really does.
Oh.
I avoid it like the plague, man. Avoid it like the plague.
What is it, quote from Dune? That God created Reddit for the oh, I can't remember the quote now, but Reddit is not for the weary or the weak. That is for sure. It is definitely a volatile, interesting, but it can be a tremendously rewarding, very friendly, very supportive environment as well.
I can honestly say that I have checked us out, Spaced Out Radio, on Reddit. We've had a lot of positive comments on there.
Yeah,
A lot of positive comments.
yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
but I try and stay away from Reddit. It just
Oh
scares me.
no. And the thing is, you have to be really careful, because Reddit is one of the king rabbit holes. Like, you can go really deep and disappear for a long time. So, yeah, it's
Was
good to tread
wasn't
wary.
Reddit wasn't Reddit a number of years ago where the Tic Tac video was first leaked? I
Hmm.
think it was. It's either Reddit or YouTube, one of the two.
You know,
I'm going back like 7 years ago, a decade ago, like long before the To the Stars
you know what?
Academy.
Actually, a friend of mine is one of the founders of Reddit, so I can actually look into him and ask him. Yeah.
Wow. Well, tell him I'm scared to death of his format. You know, don't even know how it works, but that's okay. That's okay. You know, either way, the fact is that on UFO Twitter, hashtag UFO Twitter, if you want to check it on out, there is a lot of good information out there, but there is a lot of seediness out there that you have to kind of wade between the,
It's the Wild West.
it really is.
And the thing is that what you'll find on Reddit, which is what you'll find on any proper forum, is that the quality and the attentiveness and the methodicalness and the fairness of the moderators are completely determine the entire tone, which is exactly what we find here on Spaced Out Radio and why we have such a nice environment here.
Very true. Very true. John, let's move on tonight as we continue on with the Unbiased UFO report. We'll probably have to carry this one over, but a few more details about Gary Nolan going on here.
Yeah. So one of the things I'll provide in the link is links to, because he gave 2 talks, right? So that's what this is based on. Is Dr. Gary Nolan of Stanford, him basically doing 2 different Twitter talks. It was meant to be one. His first one got cut off halfway through, and so he did a second one, and so that's why there's 2 different talks that are set up. But sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. But the thing was, is that so much information came out of these, and so I'm only kind of gleaning on a little of it. But the 2 things that I want to point out that I thought were really interesting is that one is that there's a lot of discussion over when you see these patients that have these changes in their brain, are there other characteristics that tend to be correlated, at least with them in a group setting? Things like, like I mentioned the other day about people perhaps being having tendencies toward Asperger's might have a higher tendency or might likelihood to be in this group. One of the things they're also looking at is other sorts of mental illnesses that have cross-pollination with features that experiencers experience, and what that can tell us, considering the fact that it's often damage in the brain that really informs us as to how the brain works. And so one of the things that Dr. Nolan has done, which you are not wrong. I've really grown a crush on this dude. He's using his own money to fund a postdoc at Harvard. So he's got a postdoc at Harvard that he's personally funding. And that postdoc, what he's looking at is, we'll cover it when we get back.
We continue on tonight with the Unbiased UFO report. The fedora-wearing Jon Hudson is here explaining his man crush and science crush on Stanford University's Gary Nolan.
Yes, well, he did, hey, smart, sexy, right? So, but this is super cool, right? This is like, because this is Gary actually using his own money to do something that essentially benefits all of us, right? And so just to kind of recap, what we're talking about is that in addition to the research that Gary Nolan's been doing with the contact group, shall we say, of which, like I said before, many of them were removed as being identified as being Havana syndrome, right? So he ended up with a much smaller group, and they were looking at things like, whether things like intelligence and intuitiveness have any correlation with these sort of brain changes and so forth. And the next thing he's looking at with this Harvard postdoc that he's paying for is they got a hold of a large number of basically brain studies, deep brain scans and that includes people that were very specifically diagnosed with things like schizophrenia, things like autism, things like this, so they can start looking and start finding out, are there any commonalities? Because while you have to be very, very careful with what you say, because a lot of these people have very serious medical conditions, need help. The truth of the matter is that if you have a medical condition that where people say hear voices, and then you have a healthy group that hears voices for some other reason, you have to at least reevaluate those 2 groups, because there's a chance that some of the people that are in this group should have been in this group, and vice versa, right? I mean, you need to do a full scope analysis, because now you have a much larger set of data points to look at.
Okay. Gary we're trying to get him on this show right now. Still, we're working on it with email contact with him. Gary is someone who is following in the footsteps of Jacques Vallée. and someone who is taking everything, not only from ET craft, but ET contact very seriously at Stanford University. And as you mentioned a little bit earlier, he's put his own money into this project. He believes in the science of it so much. Do you think there will ever come a day where Gary actually releases these findings in a peer review or to the public?
Oh yes, without a doubt. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever. Obviously, there are things that have to be held back for medical, reasons and so forth. But Gary is one of those beautiful people that essentially doesn't really believe it's real if it hasn't been peer reviewed, in a way, right? That's probably too exaggerated, but I mean that's the idea, right? And so I have every confidence that he will publish all of this. I don't think he sees much point in doing this kind of work unless you're going to share it. But the one thing I want to point out real quick that you touched on a second ago is that, if you look at someone like Gary Nolan and ask yourself, why is he doing this, right? Okay, you can point to his character, you can point to his intelligence, blah, blah, blah. It's all true and nice and good and all. But what a lot of it comes down to is Gary has founded several very successful companies and has done very well for himself. He deserves all the credit for that. I don't mean to take that away. But what I'm saying is that he has earned himself a place where he doesn't have to worry so much about what harm may come to him because of speaking out about this issue. And if you notice, when we've gotten wonderful people like Bob McGuire into our little groups, right, it's because they too have either retired or they've reached a point where they've sold a company and they've reached some financial stability level where they can talk about this without direct fear of harm. And the fact that we're still there, that's unfortunate.
Well, where does Gary want to take this all? I mean, he is a new member and like an all-star member of the Galileo Project right now. And he is someone who is, moving his own studies forward. He's almost been a little bit of a lone wolf in this. Can he play well with others as it moves forward?
Okay. Well, to address that last question, yeah, yes. Insofar as he will ruffle feathers. Gary does not filter for certain people, and even in this talk, he made some very direct comments about a certain Jason individual that was. I'm embarrassed to say how much I laughed at them. But the thing was, is it before his contact with Ballet, I would have answered this differently. I would have said, no, Gary's in this because it's a curiosity that he wants to solve, and he loves tough problems. And as long as there are tough, curious problems that he can sink his teeth into, he's on our side. As soon as he gets bored, he's gone. That would have been my analysis before, right? My analysis now is very different in that I think because of his work with Valet, he is going to start taking on an understanding of a bigger, and probably already has, probably why he's working with Valet. But my point is that now I think, I guess what I'm saying is, I think that his relationship with Valet now has bound him closer and tighter to the topic.
Finally, tonight, you want to get into a little bit of UFOs over Ukraine. There's a lot of people out there, man, who are calling for UFOs to come on in and help, end this horrific war that is happening between Russia and Ukraine.
Yep, and
What's
this
going
is
on
a
there with
hard
the
one.
UFOs?
This is a hard one. When I first heard about this, I got to be honest with you, I wanted to run as fast as I could in the opposite direction. I really did. I was like, "Whoa, I'm not going to touch that story with a 10-foot pole." And
Yet here you are.
yeah, here I am. And that's because when you dig into it, there's actually a really cool little basic story that comes from the beginning of it that's very John Keel like in a way, right? It's this weird story about the fact that I guess 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago, there was some weird event where There was either some dramatic weather in the sky, or possibly a ship, or some sort of a vehicle of some sort that basically came down and wiped out an entire line of tanks.
These
Gone.
were this, and we should also say these were the tanks that were allegedly firing in on the nuclear power plant.
Yep.
Now, we have, if this is
This
true,
is an interesting one. This is a good one.
we're not saying this is true, okay?
No, 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 no.
We're not
No.
saying this is true. We're not
reporting
standing
it.
behind this. We're just reporting
Yeah.
this alleged incident.
Yep.
Okay. If this is true, we have heard for years that from many contactees for decades who have said that if the world gets into anything close to a nuclear war or meltdown, that the extraterrestrials would step in. And then all of a sudden in Russia, and look, we know there is a ton of propaganda coming out from both sides of the
Oh, yeah.
ledger here.
As
Okay.
there
It doesn't
should be.
matter whether you're pro Ukraine or pro Russia. There
Yep.
is a plethora of propaganda coming out right now.
Yep. Yep.
And if this is true, this is incredible.
Yes, yeah, but I want to make a point, and that is that this is a really good story that's very relative to what we've all been talking about, because if you listen to one of the early news reports of this, it's not reported as UFO. It's
No.
reported as an act of God, and it's actually attached to someone's story about a prayer that was set up where groups of people were praying for a miracle, and were trying to claim that these events were somehow tied together. So it just shows that there can be vastly different interpretations to this. But to your earlier point, we have numerous stories going all the way back to the Trojan War of weird things showing up in the midst of battle, shooting a beam, doing something, making something happen, whatever it is, and then they go away. And the thing is that war is like, I don't think there's any way to impart upon someone how confusing war is if they haven't been in it. I think it's one of the few things that humans can experience that there's absolutely no way to know unless you've been there. And the confusion level is so high that I think it's very hard to say that a lot of these events aren't just horrible misidentifications because of lack of sleep and drugs and wounds and but some of these events have to be true. Is this one true? I don't know, but I hope so. It's a fun one.
Yeah, you know what? Let's see where it goes, because look, with the propaganda that's going on both sides, and look, I have made a very, very pointed, being of Ukrainian heritage, that I am very much supporting Ukraine on this. Not like they need my support or anything like that. What am I going to do from a radio studio in Canada? But I will say this: there is a ton of propaganda going on both sides that you have to be very careful to read through. And I also want to, you know what? I've had a number of people recently comment on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. How dare you support Ukraine? You don't know the facts. There was one person actually, and I'm going to leave their name out, but who actually commented on our YouTube channel. What, Dave is now saying he's Ukrainian? Well, yes, I am. By heritage. My father is Ukrainian. My grandparents are Ukrainian, first generation Canadians. My great grandfather, God bless his soul, is Ukrainian, who ran over here and stowed away at 14 years old with his best friend. They ran away because the Bolsheviks were coming on in and killing all young men during the revolution.
There's a
In
lot of
Ukraine.
Ukrainians in Canada and the US. A lot of
Yes.
them.
Right?
They're
So,
lovely
yes,
folk.
maybe I do take this a little bit personally. I have family over there that I've never met and probably never will. Okay. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way life is sometimes.
Can,
But go ahead.
well, I just want to say one good thing, and to be really quick, is that one way that people have found another way to help, and you guys have to look into yourself, is through Airbnb. There is a method. I've already had friends doing it where they're signing up for Airbnbs in Kiev. They're basically they're renting spaces and they're paying them as if they're staying there. And it's a very clever way of basically getting money and aid to people in there very quickly without any concerns. Just something to pass around.
Well, and that's a great idea too. But for me, as a journalist, I have to call it down the middle. That is my job.
Absolutely.
Okay. There is propaganda happening on both sides. I mean, we've seen a number of videos on the Ukraine side that have actually come from video games, and we've seen a lot of stark bull crap, pardon me, for what, the Russians saying, oh, well, this isn't an invasion. Really? You don't attack from about 16 different fronts if it's not an invasion. So you got to be able to bite your teeth. Stop with the crap on Twitter. While you can't trust the media, you're smart enough people out there to do your own research and be able to tell what is real and what is not. Do your research. Okay? If you're looking where I'm getting my research from, I am not getting my research from mainstream media. Not even looking at it. I'm looking at raw videos.
Do your research. Sit on it. Wait. Think. Don't pass judgment. Let other people soak on it too. There's no rush,
No rush. No rush. Do your homework. Right?